Welcome, good morning, and welcome to this meeting of the Licensing and Regulatory Committee. I am Councillor Lee Parker, Chair of the Licensing and Regulatory Committee, and I'll be chairing the meeting today. May I first of all remind you of some domestic arrangements. You will be invited to speak and ask questions by the Chair. Please do not interrupt other speakers. Please ensure that microphones are turned off when not in use. Please ensure mobile phones are on silent or switched off. We will be using e-voting for this meeting. Please could members therefore ensure you are logged in and ready to use the app. The Council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. If the fire alarm sounds, leave the building immediately via a fire exit and make your way to the assembly point at Ipswich Town Football Ground. Do not enter the atrium, ground floor area and walkways. If you are in the atrium at the time of the alarm, follow the signs to the nearest fire exit. Use the stairs, do not use the lift. Do not re-enter the building until told it is safe to do so. So introductions. By way of introduction, to my left is our legal advisor this morning, Nigel DeLue. We also have our licensing team leader with us, Kate Pearsall, this morning. Our licensing officer, Catherine Green, and our governance officers, Karen Sayre and Mandy Smith. Can I move to the agenda, please? Item number 1, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies received from Councillor John Nunn and Councillor Alison Owen.
Thank you very much. Declaration of interest by councillors. Are there any declarations of interest to declare from members? No? Excellent. Thank you very much. Item number 3, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of April 2024. Are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes from anyone at all? In which case, can I ask for a proposer for that, please? Councillor Smith, thank you very much. And a seconder, Councillor McCraw, thank you very much. Are we doing that on the electronic vote, Karen?
Yes, we are, Chair.
Excellent. So when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, this vote will now show in blue. That's 6 votes for, Chair, that's carried, and 1 abstention, apologies.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. In which case the minutes are approved, so we'll get those signed at the end of the meeting in that case. Okay, item number 4, to receive notification of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from councillors?
None received.
Excellent, in which case we will go into the substantive item on the agenda, which is BLR/24/2, which is to approve the revised Hackney Carriage and private hire licensing policy. And I will now invite the licensing team leader, Kate Pearsall, to introduce the paper BLR/24/2 to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On the 19th of April 2024, we presented the draft Hackney Carriage and private hire policy to this committee to be approved for a 6 weeks consultation period. The team has worked hard to ensure that the policy reflects the current legislation and guidance and ensures that we deliver our commitment to the primary and overriding consideration of public safety. We have worked closely with the trade to discuss our proposals and have taken on board their comments and suggestions. Throughout the process, we have aimed to balance the needs of the licence holders with our duty to protect the public and in particular children and vulnerable adults. During the consultation period, which began on the 23rd of April and ended on the 4th of June, of the 228 drivers and 44 operators licensed with Babergh District Council, we received feedback from 3 operators. We also received comments from the Disability Forum for Suffolk, Sproughton Parish Council and Suffolk Constabulary. All comments are attached to Appendix C. Officers reviewed all feedback and have commented on all the points raised, which are outlined in Appendix D. From the 3 operator comments, there are 2 items that need to be determined by this committee. Item 1 is in relation to the frequency of testing once a vehicle has reached a certain age. Please refer to page 8 of your report, where we reference the current requirement, the Department for Transport best practice, and our own recommendation. Item 2 is in relation to rear windows of a vehicle having a minimum level of tinted glass. Please refer to page 9 of the report, where we also reference the current requirement, the Department for Transport best practice, and again our own recommendation. All other aspects of the policy are considered accepted. Following your determination of these 2 items, we will recommend that you approve the policy to approve to Cabinet for adoption. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Kate, for that succinct presentation. So I'm hoping that we will have some good questioning and ultimately some good debate. So I'm wondering if immediately if there are any questions for the officer with regards to her presentation. Councillor Malvisi, please. And could I, Councillor Malvisi, is your microphone on? I'm not sure it was. At the risk of being a pain, could I just ask you just to repeat that for me, just so that we've got it recorded? Thank you.
Okay. My question comes from my background in languages. What is the level of language competency required? Because it doesn't seem to actually state a level, it just says achieve a level. What is that level? Because saying hello might be deemed enough. And my concern is based on the fact that with Ipswich and Colchester having Uber taxis, then how are we fixed?
Thank you. So we've, the Department for Transport, we've tried to align as much as we can with their best practice guidance and their statutory standards. And they do suggest that we introduce a level of English for the safety of the driver as well as the public. We've looked at various other councils and the level that they have set. We are looking to introduce a B1 level of English language proficiency, and that is defined by the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. So these guidelines say that someone at a B1 level in English, you can understand conversations and read texts about work, school, personal related topics. You can connect phrases in a simple way in relation to travel, family or personal interest. You can write simple texts about topics of interest to them, such as hobbies and families. And you can describe your experiences, events and opinions and so on. So we deem that that is a good level of English standard to set so that drivers can interact well with their travelling customers. As I say, it does also assist the driver's safety as well, that they can translate with their customers.
Okay, so have you got another question, Councillor Malvisi?
Yes, Chair.
Would you like to? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Why don't you put the level in the policy and then it's clear? So taxi companies and drivers know the level that they have to achieve, and we can't be accused of applying something a little bit higher or more difficult if it's not in there. If it's in there, then people know what level they've got to achieve. If it's not in there, they could argue that they have the level of competency. Yes?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's something we can do is stipulate the level. I suppose the initial reason not doing that is in case levels change and so on, but we can review the policy at any time if we need to change that level, but we can stipulate the B1 level in the policy if that's something that you would like us to do.
So I think that might be something that, again, we can tease out in debate, maybe, and discuss if that's something that we would like to do. I think for now what I'd like to do is stick to just asking questions of the report that we might need some clarification on, but we can certainly come back to that in debate. All right. Councillor McCraw, you want to ask a question?
Yes, Chair, thank you. We have 2 items where we have to make a decision. I think that's correct. The first one about the vehicle testing, I think it seems reasonable, but responses from the operators, those that we have, that is, and the other respondents, seem to indicate they thought this was exceptional. Would this be the norm in neighbouring licensing authorities and best practice in the trade in general across England and Wales?
So Ipswich, they introduce 6 monthly tests once a vehicle reaches 4 years of age. West Suffolk, it's 6 monthlies once it's licensed, and that's the same for East Suffolk. So Colchester is 5 years. It's a general around that age limit, 4 or 5. So the additional cost for that test is £50 on top of the licence.
So that would mean that we are at the liberal end of the 5 years rather than 3 years or 4 years. Second question, if I might, is on the second item, which refers to the tinting level of rear windscreens. This is just, front side windows and windscreens. The tinting level that was originally suggested was 50% as a minimum of visibility. We're proposing to compromise and reduce that to 30%. Is that, again, in line with local practice and other licensing authorities?
I must be honest, the tinting that we have in the current policy was taken from, in the proposed policy was just taken from our current policy. Having looked at, one of the operators raised that as quite an expense to reduce the level of tinting, and having looked at the standards, Department for Transport, there is no evidence to suggest that having a high level of tint raises safety issues, so we were happy to accept the Department for Transport standards, but again, we'll be guided by yourselves.
Would that be more a matter of passenger confidence that they can be seen in the vehicle under the care of somebody else, as it were? Is that the thought behind
That's the
it?
thought process, yes. They're suggesting there's no evidence to...
And other authorities in our area, would they be adopting a similar level of light transmission?
There is a similar level for most authorities, yes. I haven't got the exact standards of the other authorities. Apologies.
We don't want the absolutely dark glass. I think that's absolutely crucial. I think I wouldn't be comfortable in a vehicle that was with entirely tinted glass.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor McCraw. I think Councillor Jameson,
I was going to ask the same question. First question is Councillor McCraw about the vehicle testing.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Smith. Sorry, I saw your hand go up first. Did you have a question?
I was going to ask the same.
Okay. All right. Councillor Potter.
Thank you and good morning. I just wanted to draw attention, if I could, to page 40 in the Appendix A. The Council will keep a register of all wheelchair accessible vehicles. Could you expand on the register itself, how many are on that register that you're aware of currently, and how long is that register kept for, and where is it held within the database? Thank you.
So the register is online, and the officers update it on a regular basis. So if we have any additional wheelchair accessible vehicles registered, then we would update online. I can find you the figures if you could just give me one moment, and we can let you know.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Councillor Malvesi, just while those figures are being sought, do you want to come in with a question, just while those figures are being sought?
I'd like a point of clarification, if I may.
Of course,
Chair. The tinted windows, are they not manufacturer installed?
So many vehicles now do install the rear tinted windows, which is why the Department for Transport suggests that we don't stipulate that it's changed to a lower level because it's quite costly for the driver. So some of them will exceed the levels that we've stipulated. So
So is our level higher or lower than manufacturers?
So the level that we're stipulating would be lower than what the manufacturers is, would be lighter, if you like, than what is built into the vehicle, hence the expense of having to change it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are we still looking for that figure? If we are, I've got another question from Councillor Clover, so we're not in any rush, that's fine. Councillor Clover.
Thank you, Chair. Is it right, in terms of tinting, that it's easier to increase the tinting, you may not know this, rather than reduce? Once it's on, but taking it out again, it means replacement.
To be honest, I don't know exactly how the process is achieved, but I assume that it's harder to do, hence the recommendation not to stipulate two level. So we have 69 vehicles in Babergh.
That's great. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you.
Okay, members, do we have any other questions at this point? Because if not, we'll head straight into debate. Now, I don't propose to exclude being able to ask questions of the officer if we need to ask questions. The officer's here, but we're certain that we've got no specific questions about the report specifically at this point. No. Okay, right. In which case, I will open the item up for debate. So I think it's probably fair to say that our officers would appreciate a clear steer from us with regards to those two items specifically. So who has got some comments that they'd like to impart? Excellent, all of you. Councillor Clover, your hand went up first.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think this, particularly considering what the Department for Transport are recommending and what neighbouring areas are also what their format is. I think this is a very reasonable and fair one on item 1 with the 5 years. I would think that these taxis are doing probably about 30k a year, maybe as an average. We don't know, and I don't know, Kate, you may know, but if that's the case, then after 5 years, every 6 months would seem reasonable to me, because, of course, that when it gets to 5 years old, that can be to the end of its life, of course, the car's life as well. So I think it seems to me that twice, when it becomes 5 years old and over, twice during each 12-month period is a reasonable request for examination.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clover. Although I will just see if I can get some clarification, because you say it's still the end of the car's life, but actually, do we have a limit on the maximum age of the vehicle?
We don't have an age limit on the maximum, which again is why it's good to ensure we have those tests, 6 monthly tests, to ensure that it's fit for purpose.
Excellent, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Clover. It seems reasonable to benchmark with the neighbouring authorities, and most of the objections seem to be on grounds of cost, and I don't think £50 is unreasonable.
Okay. Excellent, thank you very much. Councillor Malvisi, did you have something you want to say? Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Having been involved in a previous iteration of the policy, etc., I have to say that I think this is a very well-written report. I think it's a well-thought-through document, and I think it's presented very well. The frequency of testing makes sense, and the standards, the benchmark for tinted windows, I think also makes good sense. My one question would be establishing the standard of English language competency. I've worked in export and I know exactly the problems encountered when you don't know the nuances of the language. I worked for a French company and I was in Spain, and the French company was called Roche-Beaubois, and the taxi driver, I showed him the address, although I do speak Spanish, and he took me to a place that wasn't a retail store, and I said, no, this is not right, and he's going, yes it is, so we had a little bit of a contretemps, and then I wrote down the name of the store, looked at it, and he went, Roche-Beaubois. Just subtle nuance, pronunciation, and that can cause problems, and if somebody's trying to get somewhere. So I would encourage the committee to request that the competency level be established, because that's the benchmark. Whether it goes up or changes, it is a benchmark from which to depart.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Malvesi. And obviously that would be a point of debate amongst the councillors then. So I think what you're proposing, as you mentioned in the questions section earlier, what you're suggesting is that it would be good practice to have that standard, that level, included within the policy.
Yes, I would, because the policy is the point of referral.
Okay. All right, so I'd be keen to know other members' thoughts on that, only because my concern might be, is that going to potentially require an overly onerous level of work? Because if we have to review the policy, which we can do at any point, but if we have to review, presumably there has to be a whole new consultation process, etc., etc. So I'd be interested to hear other members' thoughts, but can I just get some clarification from the member? From Kate on that.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why we stipulated there would be an English level, a test. I completely understand why you're saying we should stipulate a specific level, but once it's in the policy, the requirement is they must undertake a English test that we have stipulated is a suitable level. So what we are suggesting is the B1. So it doesn't have to be contained in the policy, because this is we are requiring that test, and that is going to be that level. I mean, I don't know if...
Sure. So again, my own thoughts on that, and thank you very much for clarifying. But my own thoughts, I think, from what I'm hearing from that, is that the existing policy is probably adequate. And I'm just going to ask my advisor on the left here. I mean, if we were to include Councillor Malvesi's suggestion, would that require a change to the recommendation?
Chair, I think it would be a minor amendment that you could change without going to any further consultation on it. Again, you need to be careful as to how you want to specify the required level. Remembering, of course, that not all drivers will be subject to the test, because a lot of them will be proficient in English anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you very much, Nigel. Councillor McCraw.
Yes, would the stipulation of what test exactly, would that be best left as a delegated authority to officers carrying out the policy, included in the proposal already in front of us? Is that a feasible route of travel to achieve the point, but not make it overly bureaucratic?
Yeah. Yeah. Is that a question or a...
I'm asking that and making it as a suggestion, but I would like some advice from officers and from legal as to whether that's feasible, sensible and understandable by users, particularly by the operators themselves. I think it's only fair that there be a clear understanding of what is required of them, without it being, as somebody said, too onerous. We don't want to be unfair, but we do want there to be as little opportunity for misunderstanding. I think that's the key here.
Yeah, okay. Eminently sensible as ever, Councillor McCraw. So have we got any comments on that, Kate?
Yeah, I mean, the policy there is a guide for us, really, and it sets out our standards of what we expect. So, yes, we state we will require an English language test, and as Councillor McCaw kindly pointed out, we can stipulate at our level what that test contains. So I think that would be a good suggestion, is that we found the level that we want to achieve, and that's what we will introduce, but not necessarily specifying exactly that level in the policy. Again, things may change, so then we can make sure it's reflected and up to date, and we don't want to have to keep coming back to committee for minor amendments. So I think that's a very good suggestion, Councillor McCraw.
Yeah, excellent. So I think, yes, yeah, Councillor McCraw.
I think that's the point, is to make it future-proof, so that it doesn't have to be constantly tinkered with. Should standards ever change, should there be any need for change, it can be done quickly and efficiently.
Tremendous. Thank you very much. Councillor Malvesi.
Can I just make a comment, Chair? We live in an area where we do have our very particular ways of pronouncing certain locations, and I think it would help, because the passengers can be foreigners and the driver could be a foreigner. You know, we've got...
Yeah, we say Stour and you say Stour.
Yeah, and you know, the famous one is Babergh, and it should be Haysborough, so...
Okay,
yeah.
All right, colloquialisms.
Thank
right,
you.
okay, let's stick with the with the paper in front of us. Councillor Jameson.
Yeah, sort of a question. Who decides who needs a language test? I mean, is that based on, I mean, someone who's, I mean, is everyone given an English language test, whether they're English or not? Or I mean, you could be from another part of the country and still have a strong accent. I mean, it's difficult to understand. So who decides if someone needs an English language test?
So it's for a requirement for all new drivers, regardless of where they originate from, or their first language. We set that requirement for all drivers, new applicants, sorry. If we have a current licensed driver that perhaps we get complaints about their spoken language, then we can ask them to complete the test as well. But it will be a requirement for all new applicants.
So even if someone comes from Ipswich, there'll still be...
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Clover.
Thank you, Chair. I think what Councillor Jameson is looking for is, what is the screening process? Do you ask, is their first language English? And then if the answer to that is yes, that's the end of the discussion.
So that is part of the checks. We do ask, obviously, their nationality and so on as part of their checks. So other authorities have stipulated that it's for all new drivers. So we have had authorities where English-speaking applicants have failed the test. So the general recommendation is that it's introduced for all drivers or all applicants, not just those that are from, not that English isn't their first language.
Councillor McCraw.
I note, though, that in the recommendations there are actually two substantive recommendations. Languages, and as is much of the policy, been generally accepted. Otherwise we would be talking about the whole lot, which we've already done, and I don't want to do it again. So I think the main thing is focusing on the 2 points. The first one about the inspection regime, up to 5 years and after 5 years, it seems eminently reasonable, not overly expensive, although obviously nobody likes having to spend money. But I think we should remind ourselves that these are vehicles in constant use, far in excess of anything a private car would do, for example, which goes to a place of work, gets parked, stays there all day, and then is brought back. These cars are going backwards and forwards all over the place. There's going to be wear and tear on them as it happens. So inspection makes sense. The second one, I'm slightly unclear as to whether the recommendation is for a minimum visual light transmission of 50% or 30%. So before we vote, I'd just like to establish which of the two we are applying.
It's the 30%.
It's the 30%, not the original proposed 50%.
Yes.
So in that case, I think there's no point in dilly-dallying around this. If both of these are reasonable, I believe that they are, I'd like to propose that we pass the policy as recommended and as discussed.
Excellent, well done. Thank you very much, Councillor McCraw. So we have a proposal. I will require a seconder for that. Okay, across the board. Councillor Smith, put your hand up first. So we have a proposer and a seconder for that. Notwithstanding, Councillor McCraw, I fully concur. You're right that the consultation has resulted in the officers needing determination on these 2 points. But notwithstanding, I think it's very important that members be given every opportunity to ask any questions about any other part of the report before we move to the vote. So is there anything else that anybody's got any questions about, or requires any clarification about, or shall I take? Yes, excellent, well done. Councillor Potter, thank you.
Just before we go to that vote, just a bit of clarification on CCTV, and obviously what I'm looking at is, do you consider each on a case-by-case basis? Have you in the past done this within the taxi ranks within Babergh? The frequency of that you've dealt with in the past, and how you'll be able to implement that in the future? Will it be more of a common occurrence? We live in obviously difficult changing times. Will CCTV in your reckoning be something that will be coming to your desk more often than not? Thank you.
This is installation in the vehicles, CCTV.
That's right,
yes.
yeah.
We haven't specified that all vehicles must have this. It is a cost to the driver, but we do encourage it because for the safety of the driver and travelling passengers. I imagine at some point it will probably come in as a requirement from government that it must be installed in all vehicles, and I should imagine we'll be waiting for that to come from central government to then implement that into our policy. But at the moment we encourage it. We ensure we do cover off that they have the right procedures in place because they are the data owner. So we make sure that we've covered it ourselves from that end, but we don't insist upon vehicles having it.
No, and that's fair enough, and we will wait and see what the new government has plans for.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor McCraw.
I think it's good that it's not mandatory as yet, because we all know the difficulties involved in general data protection regulations and the various trip hazards. I think that's what I'm going to call them, trip hazards, that you can have with holding such data. So, and I'm pretty sure the operators would be happier, maybe not, to have to consider that immediately. Should it become necessary in the future, but because of government regulation, then that might be, something to look at then, but it hasn't happened yet. So I think I put that happily to one side.
Thank you very much, Councillor McCraw. Okay. Right, so out of respect for Councillor Malvese's point with regards to minimum standards of language, I don't know if you want to press that point, Councillor Malvese. I'm sensing that councillors seem to be content, but before you respond, if Councillor Malvese were minded to press the point, would we need a proposal from Councillor Malvese to amend the recommendation?
Any recommendation or any decision to approve anything that's different to the recommendation will need a discussion and a vote to change anything.
Okay, so with that in mind, is that something that you want to press, Councillor Malvese, or can we accept the proposal as is?
I don't think there's any point in pressing for it because the officer has explained that everybody has to sit a test on the English language, even English language first speakers. And sometimes they fail, which, yes, so no, I'm not pressing.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that, Councillor Malvese. Right, okay, in which case we have a proposer and we have a seconder for the recommendation, which is 3.1 on your paper, that the Licensing and Regulatory Committee approve the policy to proceed to Cabinet for adoption. So on that basis, I will ask the Regulatory and Civic Officer to conduct the electronic vote. Please, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. The vote for this item is now in progress. That's 7 votes for, Chair. That's carried.
Forgive me. In that case, that is carried. And so without any further ado, I will I've no further matters to add, so I'll just thank everybody. Thank you to the officers for a very good report. Thank you. And thank you to everybody else that supported. And I will now declare this meeting closed at 10:36. Thank you very much all.